Hello and welcome to today's session, which is all about self-esteem and assertiveness. So what are they? We'll look at self-esteem first. Self-esteem is about how we perceive and feel about ourselves. That's how we feel, nothing to do with anybody else. If we have good self-esteem, we can make good decisions. We can trust ourselves. We'll have good self-care. We can be assertive where we need to. We know our needs and we can be the best version of ourselves that we can be. So that all sounds great. However, if we have low self-esteem, the opposite can be true. We may not like or value ourselves. We may have trouble being assertive because we don't trust what we need or our own decisions. We can sometimes be taken for granted, and we're in a vulnerable position without self-esteem. If we go back to the beginning of the programme where we looked at who am I, you'll be able to see why we did that work and how it now connects to these two subjects. If you need to go back to look at how your self-esteem is, and so that you can work on the other parts of self to ensure you have good self-esteem and assertiveness, then you can always do that. You have the building blocks now to work with. So ask yourself the question, how is my self-esteem? Pause the video and make some notes. So assertiveness, what is it? Assertiveness, not to be mixed up with aggression or aggressiveness, is where we are able to speak our truth and be comfortable to do so. Aggression is a completely different thing. Assertiveness is about being clear about our point of view or how we feel about something. It's also not about being rigid. So if we are being assertive about a point of view and then we discuss it with someone or people, or we read something and we change our minds on what we now believe, that's okay too. You can change your mind. But in the moment that you're feeling or thinking something, you have a right to be assertive about it, even if others do not agree. If you change your mind, you can then be assertive about your new way of thinking or feeling. It's about being comfortable to do that. How is your assertiveness? Do you remember the last time you were assertive? Do you remember a time where you wanted to be assertive, but you couldn't for some reason? Did someone have a difference of opinion? Did you feel that you couldn't voice your own opinion because of a response you might feel you will get? Pause the video and have a think about where you've been assertive and where you've shut your voice down, and perhaps why that was. And then we'll come back to talk about assertiveness a little bit more. So I hope you now have a few examples that will help you build a picture of where you are with your assertiveness. You know what you've got to work with or work on. Things that can get in the way of being assertive, first of all, is our internal dialogue. which we've spoken about recently. Oh, I'm silly to think that. I'm silly to feel that. If we're saying that to ourselves, we're possibly not going to be saying what we think or feel out loud to others. We are putting a downer on our own truths. This can also happen from the outside world. So if people do not like our opinions or feelings, they may manipulate us or tell us it's wrong. We need to look at all angles when we're looking at assertiveness to see where the obstacles are, our limitations, and our strengths. Assertiveness can be easier to put into place in certain arenas or with certain people. Work can be an easier place to do so. So if we're asked to do 10 hours overtime for nothing, are we going to say, yeah, okay, I'll do that, when we really mean absolutely not, I need paying? Or are we going to say our truth and say, absolutely not, I need to be paid for those hours? Generally, less is more when we're being assertive. This means that we use as fewer words as possible to get our point across. The more words we use, the more diluted the message gets. The more words we use, the more we sound like we're justifying ourselves in our opinions or feelings. And we don't need to do that. We don't need to justify ourselves in most circumstances. Again, it dilutes the message that we're trying to portray. To be short and concise is the key. If you asked a friend if they would help you with something, what response would be best? They say, oh, I'm sorry, but I've got to work that morning, then I'm picking up the kids, and then I'll have to make dinner, then I won't be back in time. That's them justifying themselves as to why they can't do it. Or would we prefer, I would, but sorry, I can't that day? Which would you prefer? Now, the latter might leave us with the question of, oh, why can't you? But generally, we can accept someone else's boundary, that they've said, no, I can't. And we can generally accept, okay, that's fine. I'd prefer the latter, as the first response would possibly get on my nerves. I don't need an answer filled with justification, do you? If I need to ask a question of, oh, what are you up to that day? Or, if I really, really needed to know, I could ask. I could be assertive and ask the question. But generally, I'm going to respect that someone has said that they can't. And that's fine. So are you a person who can say, no, sorry, I can't? Or are you more likely to justify why you can't without being asked why you can't? People pleasers will often be more likely to justify without being asked. So where do you stand in that? Now we're going to look at when to be assertive, when to say our truth, depending on how we are feeling. If we are in child mode, we're feeling vulnerable, we're feeling impulsive, we're feeling angry, or emotional in a more negative way, it's probably not the time to try to be assertive. We're more likely to get our point across when we're in a reasonable adult mode. And the thing with being assertive is we do not have to be assertive in the moment we want to be. We can wait, and it's usually better to wait until we're in a good frame of mind to get our point across. So if being assertive means we are going to have a tantrum, we're going to shout, we're going to get upset, we're going to be defensive, then we are going to lose our ability to be assertive in that moment. It's better to go away, calm down, be reasonable, and go back and be assertive when we're ready. It's never too late to be assertive. We might get the feeling that it's best to do it in the moment, and that's good. But we can always go back when we're feeling strong and be assertive at a later time. It's better late than never, and it's certainly better to do it as a reasonable adult than if we're feeling extremely emotional, because we may not get our point across well and we may not get the response we need, and it may actually escalate things in a completely different direction to what we need or want. So that's something to think about. How do you deal with change? That's change motivated by yourself, that goes the way you want it to. Change that's motivated by yourself that doesn't go as planned. And change motivated by the outside world, which is out of your control. They all affect us differently, and it's important that we can see how these things affect us. Change and the inability to deal with change positively can be strongly linked with anxiety. And we'll have a look at that in a moment. But it's also very much linked to self-esteem. So if we have low self-esteem, our ability to deal with change is usually not great. So it's important that we build up our ability to deal with change, which then helps us feel better about ourselves, builds our self-esteem, which then helps our assertiveness and helps to combat anxiety. A lot of the things we talk about in this program are linked together, and to deal with one often helps a different aspect of ourselves, and thus all the building blocks to being the best version of ourselves we can be, and to combat anxiety and keep our anxiety levels low, and for us to be in a good place. So if we motivate a change and we're in control and it goes to plan, that's really good for our self-esteem, because we've been in control of it and it's worked out well. If we've motivated a change and it doesn't work out so well, that can take us down a peg and make us feel low and possibly anxious. How do we deal with change that is motivated by the outside world or someone else, not us? These are things that are happening to us, and we can feel really out of control of those things happening. But the thing is, if they affect us, then we need to do something about the effects that it's having on us. We also need to own the effects that it's having. So if 10 people stood up, they'd all had a similar thing happen to them, but they are all affected in different ways. Do we pick one and say, well, they're right because that seems to fit with what's happened more? Or do we say that everyone is an individual and has a right to feel and think what they do from the event that's happened? It's the latter, isn't it? We need to see ourselves as an individual as well and take on board how we think and feel when something happens to us. It's not about comparing to other people. Well, it didn't bother them, it really shouldn't bother me. All that kind of internal dialogue going on again and the comparisons going on again. So first of all, we need to look at how is this affecting me and how am I thinking and feeling. Secondly, is to do whatever we can about that. Sometimes change that happens to us can be a good thing. It's seeing past the thing itself into another realm of ideas that can come from what's happened. For example, if we lost our job, it could be a good time to try something new or get a higher paid role. That may not work out that way, but maybe it will if we take the opportunity on board that the change is not just a disaster. It can have positive effects. Very often good can come from bad things that happen. This is not 100%, but often. If we look for a different point of view and a different opportunity and stay away from tunnel vision, that we're on this path and anything outside of that path is scary and we're going to have a fear around it and we're not going to be able to cope with it, then when something does steer us off, we're going to have trouble dealing with it. However, if we're steered off into another direction and we look at all the opportunities that may be there because of it, then we can do something good with it. So it's another way of thinking. It's positive psychology. So how do you deal with change? And can you bring more positivity in as to how you deal with change? Or deal with a change that happens even if you've motivated a change and it hasn't worked out how you thought it would. Anxiety caused by change can be linked to many things. So let's have a look at a few and what we can do about them. First of all, isolation. This could be isolation from the outside world, friends, family, our job. What can we do about it? We can get out and get fresh air. We can get out into the community. We can join a group. We can see people we know or join a new group where we meet new people. We need to keep up with friends and family that we care about, even if they're in another country or we can't see them right now. We need to use whatever we have to hand to communicate with them and keep those relationships going. Fear. That's fear of change, fear of war, fear of health issues, fear of someone's mortality, all sorts of fears. Fears are generally exacerbated by avoiding the fear itself. That's avoiding doing it, avoiding thinking about it. And sometimes that can be a good thing, but other times we do need to face the fear and work towards whatever it is that we've got the fear about. In CBT, this would be called systematic desensitisation, where if we have a fear of mortality, we need to talk about it. It calms us down because it's out in the open. If we have a fear of doing a certain thing, then we need to work towards doing that thing. Now, this needs to be done carefully and slowly. And that's not really what this is about at this moment. We're just looking at fear and how it can cause anxiety. So how do we break fears down? We need to look at the difference between a fear based on reality and a fear that's based on the unknown and a fear that's based on something we've heard. For health issues, for example, we may go to a blog or a group online and people are telling of their horror stories of this health issue. And we can get sucked into that and become very fearful of certain symptoms. But really what we need to do is go to the doctor or health professional and find out actually what's going on for us. And sometimes fears can come around just because we've sucked up too much of this negative information from others. So we need to be very careful about that. If we can break down our fears, we'll have less anxiety. Unrest can cause anxiety because it's linked to us not feeling comfortable. It might be that we have the idea that the grass is greener. We're stuck in something and it would be better if we were out of it. It might be that we're comparing to what other people have and feeling unrest because we don't have it ourselves. But do we need it anyway? Would it make us as happy or content as we think it will? Do you ever feel unrest? It's an uncomfortable feeling for sure. So we need to take acceptance of a situation and responsibility for our own actions and outcomes. Also knowing that we're not alone. So taking comfort that if we feel unrest, it's either a message that we need to do something or it's just a comparison. Loss is a big one. It could be the loss of a person, the loss of a job, the loss of a limb, the loss of an inanimate object that means a lot to us. All sorts of losses that we deal with in our lifetimes. So how do we deal with these better in order that they don't cause us too much anxiety? First of all, to accept that we're feeling a certain way about the loss. It's okay to feel how we do. Also to seek help and support, either with family and friends that are there for us, to seek further information, to have therapy, to do whatever we need to deal with the trauma caused by loss and to give ourselves time. And it's not time to get over it or move on. It's not really about those things, is it? It's about getting through to accept the loss, but it's not really about moving on. It's about maybe that we're a slightly different person after the loss. So we're not expecting to get back always to exactly where we were before the loss occurred. Be good to ourselves, that's the message there. being unable to celebrate or be with people that we want to for a certain event. So it might sound a little twee, being unable to celebrate at times. However, if there really was something that was important to get to, such as a big birthday or a wedding or a holiday you've waited for a long time, that you're really looking forward to. If change occurs and you're now unable to go, or the thing is not able to go ahead. Again, it's dealing with change, but it has an emotional context to it because you were looking forward to it and it meant something to you. So how do we deal with change of that nature? If we can't see someone who we're looking forward to seeing, can you see them online? Can you have a telephone call? Can you write a letter or an email? Can you have contact in another way? Maybe you can arrange something at a later date. Maybe you can accept to look at photographs of an event or videos of an event that you've missed. Acceptance is key here, but also some practical moves as to how you can still be as involved as you can, even if you can't be there or the thing does not go ahead. If it's a cancelled holiday, can you book something else in the future or do something different? Even if something is cancelled, we can still do something else and have a good time. Vices such as smoking or alcohol, do you partake in them? Do you get enjoyment from them, or do they cause anxiety? When we're dealing with change, we need to look at what our vices are and whether they're actually helpful. Sometimes if we're feeling anxious, it's not to have a drink or a cigarette. It might be to have a healthy meal, to keep our sugar down, our salt down, and to eat healthily. All of the things we've just looked at can cause a low mood. And a low mood can cause anxiety. Vice versa, anxiety can cause a low mood. So how we deal with change is also a really important factor in keeping our anxiety low and keeping our mood up. They are linked, and if we're feeling either, then we need to use good self-care, look to having some support, and maybe having some therapy or going to see a healthcare professional. To end this session, I have a couple of tasks for you to do in your own time. So make a note of these things. For everything I do not feel confident doing, think of something I do feel confident doing. Turn it around. Find new ways of thinking. Then I'd like you to look at, for everything I feel I can't do, think of things I can do. It's positive psychology, and it's looking at where there's a negative, we want to turn it into a positive. So a negative statement becomes a positive statement. Think outside of the box. It's good to know our limitations, but also to turn it around and look at our strengths. It leads to good self-esteem and will lead on to good boundaries and then assertiveness. I know a lot of these things are easier than said than done. However, I would encourage you to give them a go and see what results you get. So bye for now. Take care, and I'll see you in the next session.